Hey everybody, David Chatham here with Angel Oak Creative. Welcome to our second episode of the second season of our podcast, Nonprofit State of Minds, where we're picking the brains of nonprofit leaders in the sector and hopefully learning something while we're doing that. I know I do each time. We have some interesting guests today. We have Dave Norris and Tasha VanVlack from the nonprofit Hive. I might call them the king and queen bees of the nonprofit Hive. And it's an interesting concept. I got connected with them on LinkedIn, like I do with a lot of folks on this podcast. And Tasha and I had a conversation, and she gave me the insights in this. I was like, man, we need to share this with the nonprofit world. So at least through our little part that we serve at Angel Oak on this podcast. So thank you both for being here, and look forward to hearing a little bit about your journey to the Hive, to the nonprofit Hive. So Tasha, you want to start with a little bit of intro as to who you are and how you got here?
Sure, absolutely. And, thanks so much for inviting us to do this. And I had a great conversation with you, and it's been really exciting to start sharing about what we're building. And, I've been in the nonprofit space for, I guess 8 years now, in variety of roles, always nonprofit adjacent, talking to nonprofiteers and supporting them in marketing or technology or fundraising. And so I've just always been kind of listening. I love hearing people's stories. I love nonprofit origin stories are my favorite. It can't get enough of understanding why people invest in this sector, what makes them tick. And so, for me, the nonprofit Hive is just kind of a natural extension of something that I've been kind of doing in the background of places like LinkedIn forever. I just like to get in touch with people. I like to talk to people. I like to find supports and ways to just generally enrich the sector. So yeah, it's been a really exciting and meandering journey to where we are now.
Dave, how about you? What's been your flight like to the Hive?
Yeah, and like Tasha said, thanks for having us.
Sure.
I think I think the word accidental comes to mind. And the word adjacent also comes to mind, similar to what Tasha said. So I started a digital marketing agency back in the day. This was, years ago now, and ended up working with some local nonprofits, and then ended up taking a job as a role as CTO for a company that we worked then exclusively with nonprofits. And following that, I now find myself working, almost exclusively with nonprofits, which is kind of interesting because I didn't intend to be here, but I do enjoy being here. And I think I just build things. I consider myself kind of a doer and just making things, and that's what I enjoy. And found myself kind of doing that here with tech and nonprofits. And yeah, like I don't know, it was April of last year, Tasha, that you kind of came to me and you're like, hey, I have this idea. And she was like, prefaced it with like, don't think I'm crazy. And, ending that call, I was like, I don't think you're crazy. I think that's a really good idea.
Yeah.
Um, and so here we are, almost a
Yeah.
year later.
Well,
Almost
that's
a year
very
later. And it
cool.
was like, it was AFP icon FOMO is
Oh,
partly what started this, David, where,
yeah.
And
it was
the
just
New
like,
Orleans one, right? Yeah,
the New
yeah, right.
Orleans one last year, and I was going, oh my goodness, I can't believe all these people I adore are there. And then it just got me thinking about how many other people in the nonprofit space can't afford that level of networking on a regular basis.
Yeah.
And what are we missing out on when we put all our eggs into a single conference basket, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so much that can be done outside of just conference season networking and communication. So
Well, we've probably built up a lot of questions. What is the nonprofit Hive? So tell us what this crazy concept that you all came up with. What is it, and why is it?
sure. Dave, I'm going to let you go with the what is it? And like from a technology standpoint first.
Yeah, so it is very simple, and what it is, it's a weekly one-to-one, we call them Hive chats. And this is over a video call. We host the call. We do all the scheduling for you. We do all of the matchmaking for you. Each week you are matched with another participant of the Hive, and you hop on a 30-minute call with them and you chat about all things nonprofit, problems, loneliness, successes, fundraising, marketing, you name it. It is there for discussion. And typically you're discussing something with somebody who, Tasha does the matchmaking in the background, and it's all people that you would expect to be kind of wanting to talk to you that you might not have ever met before, which is, I think, the really cool part here. And technically speaking, from a technology standpoint, we try to make this extremely simple. Sunday an email goes out, Friday an email goes out, Sunday a reminder goes out for your matchmaking. You choose a time slot. It's 8:30, 12:30, and 4:30 Eastern Standard Time. And once that is made, Monday we do all the matchmaking. Email goes out with your match. You can connect on LinkedIn, and then Thursday you have your Hive chat, and then it starts over on Friday for the following week. So each week you're meeting somebody really unique, really special, and yeah, it's all part of the Hive community.
Yeah, I had my first conversation a couple of weeks ago, and my first Hive chat. And yeah, I was speaking with, I think she was, if I recall correctly, was kind of had a background in digital marketing and other areas, and was up in New York. And, we came from two totally different backgrounds, two totally, we probably would have not been in the same universe had we not been connected. And it was really a really enlightening conversation and enjoyable. So, I'm a fan, and apart from my own inabilities to put something on my calendar, I would have probably a few more Hive conversations to talk about. So,
And depending on when that
me.
was, we do have an update where there's a button in the
Yeah.
email that you can click it, and then it adds it right to your calendar. And
So
that's
that's
for
like the
Outlook.
Hive,
email.
the nonprofit Hive for dummies like me. So
Well,
We just need a little infographic for people maybe at the beginning. And I think that's been what's been so cool about the journey so far is this has been very community led. Like
mhm.
Dave and I are just kind of like in the background going, well, what do people need? How can we make this easier? What are the steps? And, we came out, it's been actually, I was realizing this the other day, Dave, last Friday, it had been 3 months only. So we just,
Wow.
Yeah,
it's
it's new. I should have said
October
that.
19th was our first date, and we absolutely are still working off of like an MVP product. This is not us thinking that we have made something perfect, but I think what's been amazing is that we're really, really trying to listen to people who are using the chats. We're getting feedback all the time. Our tweaks are totally based on what our hivers say they need or want. And so it's been incredible to see it grow and see it be so organically community led. And I think that's probably where some of the power comes out of it, and
Yeah.
why it's working so well and taking off kind of on its own is that we've got so many, just I would call them power users already in the last 3 months, where they're taking off. And it's so cool, David. Like, I don't know if you've had this experience yet, but I get to watch all these people who I've connected with over LinkedIn who are hivers, and they're all just cheerleading each other now.
Yeah.
And like my LinkedIn scrolls by and I see them jumping on each other's posts and elevating each other. And that's like the best of what can happen in this nonprofit space. And I think we all need more collaboration and opportunities just for nonprofit community. Like nonprofits build communities all the time around a mission, around programs, around goals, but we're not that great at like creating our own community of like nonprofiteers. Like the people who serve don't have great community. And I know you've built an incredible community from what I'm hearing for others already. And I think there's these like small pockets, but there's not a great international level community to kind of bring together and collaborate at this point still.
Yeah,
Well,
Tasha, what is the stat for us that we have? We excuse me, we have is it 12 different countries? 16?
22.
22 now.
Wow.
See?
22 now. 22. I'm creeping in the background. 22 countries. And someone from each of those countries has attended a call so far, which is really exciting. Brand new
Wow.
person from Ireland this week. And it's really fun for me because I'm, I am the one matchmaking in the background and going, who is a good match? Like, what do they have in common? And I try to do like, here's people in common this week. And now you're going to get someone next week that your only common thing is that you're both nonprofiteers. And
Right.
what can happen when those people get in a conversation? Because that's when it gets super interesting as well, right? Because
Well, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Two of the things that you talk a lot about, at least that one of the some of the purpose of the Hive is about connection and collaboration, right? Why
Yeah.
is that so? Why do you see that as being two really important aspects of the nonprofit sector?
I don't know, Dave, do you want to go first? Or
Tasha, you can go because I think I want to touch on some of the topic selection or
Sure. Yeah.
interests, if you will. So yeah, go for it.
I think the connection and collaboration piece is just so critical because I think there's a need for innovation in the nonprofit space, but we're not all in rooms together frequently, right? We're not, there kind of is becoming, I'm seeing a little bit more of like a cult of experts, which is great.
Mhm.
There are wonderful people on LinkedIn. I'm in those webinars, like super excited to hear what they have to say. But I think we're also sometimes missing the mark because the average person who works in a nonprofit or is nonprofit adjacent, serving nonprofiteers in marketing or fundraising or technology, or the newbies coming in, their voices they're not really there. Like there's
Yeah.
not a voice. And I think what's been so interesting has in these Hive chats, and usually I on Thursdays cheat the system and have 3, which has been really exciting for me and I get to talk to all these new people, is that I'm learning so much just sitting in and actively listening to what these people are saying about the industry and how they're feeling and what's the struggles, but also what the successes are. And when I think we come together for moments of collaboration and community and just nonprofit talk, I think it helps all of us kind of look at what we're doing and not only be more excited about what we're doing, but also maybe look at it with a critical eye and go, here's someone else who's doing something really cool. I never would have heard about this, right?
Yeah.
Like, because they're a real person on the ground doing the work day to day, not an expert in the field that I feel so far removed from
Yeah.
they're doing, right? Because they're an expert, so I feel like I don't have anything to contribute. So,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been really cool to watch our hivers start to collaborate more.
I think it's also a reminder that, we're all experts in our own thing, right? That, we all have something to contribute. And, many people aren't given a platform to do that. And, I
Yeah.
think that's one reason I love doing this podcast and, try to invite different people on and hopefully give a voice to some folks who may not have that platform. But, I think for me, there's that opportunity too to just let people gain strength from their own experience, right? And that there's an opportunity for them to hear themselves say things that are helpful and productive to somebody else. Because I think, especially in the nonprofit sector, it's so kind of introspective and internal, right, to their organization, that not getting necessarily outside often, that this gives a really low barrier to speaking to somebody, and it helps to connect with people that may benefit from their advice as well. So I just, I'm not one that doesn't have a platform, so I love being able to maybe give someone else a platform to do that. And I think the Hive does that as well, that you give people a chance to hear themselves say things that maybe they didn't expect to hear themselves say.
Yeah. And just like a podcast too, Dave, it's you essentially you have 52 if you do it weekly, uh opportunities to meet somebody new,
Yeah.
right, throughout the year. And there's some different features and things that we're planning on releasing that will up that potentially in terms of being able to engage with more people. But yeah, absolutely. I mean, just in terms of that collaboration, and how, we're matchmaking in the background, it's based on interests. And when you when you sign up for the nonprofit hive, you tell us that you're looking to be a mentor, to be a mentee, there's I think, how many different options are there, Tasha? There's probably like 12 or so.
I think we have 8 and you can pick 4
Yeah,
because I'm
yeah.
trying to like go, if you give me all the options, it's not as easy, right?
Right,
For
right.
me to go like,
Right.
how do I,
Doesn't really help you narrow
no, I
the
know
subject
Yep.
down.
the
And
narrowing
so
needs to happen. Yeah.
And so then in the background, then there's like, Tasha has those she's viewing what the similarities are. And so just really meaningful connections, I would say, are coming out of that, which then meaningful collaborations are a result, right? And I too, sit in on Thursdays on Hive chats, and I'm asking questions. Like Tasha said, we are listening. Um, but really listening to what they want. I typically take the last 10 minutes of a call and I'm just like, what could the nonprofit hive do better? What could we do, for you? What would you like to see?
Yeah.
And that, I think, is the really cool part, just in terms of hearing people either validate some of what we're thinking about doing, or just brand new ideas that really it is a community-led project, and that, Tasha and I aren't going into this thinking that we know what's best. It's really community driven. And again, 52 conversations throughout the year. There's going to be some evolution that happens here too. And we have things lined up for Q1, that, I'm assuming Q4 will look totally different. I mean, I would hope that it looks totally different, just
Yeah.
in terms of uh what we're up to.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one other thing I would note too, and I think you kind of started to lead into this, Dave, but one-to-one conversation is just different than a webinar, right? It
Yeah.
just
Oh,
is like
yeah.
a group webinar or a group call, or, I always frequently say to people, like, I am loud and I know that, and I have lots of opinions and I'm aware of those things. I'm not pretending to not be that person. But what's really exciting is when you get one-to-one, everyone has something to say, right? Especially in the hive, because it's already attracting people who want to talk about nonprofit
Right.
work, who want to talk about these different pieces, that want to connect. So I find that conversations are really engaging really fast, right? And at the worst case scenario, you met someone cool doing something great, and that's your worst case scenario for the 30-minute call.
Right.
The high end, who knows what's possible? I know of, of people who are nonprofit consultants who have now found like a great match, because this nonprofiteer was like, we actually need this service. This was great. So I've
Right.
already know of these matches happening, because I think there's a trust component there when you get to have like just a meaningful conversation, right? And so it's exciting to see that. I know we had 2 tech people talking about what could happen between the US and one guy's in the UK, and like they had a really exciting conversation the other day that both of them messaged me afterwards going, how did you do this match? But it's fun for me, and like super, super fun, to see, what's coming out of these chats. And we're only 3 months in. So like, yeah. So every week it's already getting better and more exciting, what's
That's
happening.
great.
Yeah.
And you've given a couple of examples, but any ones that have stood out even more of what kind of feedback you're getting, what kind of experiences people are having that somebody might expect if they're, decide to be part of the nonprofit hive?
I think I'll go first, and Tasha, we have a ton of feedback. But I think what generally to expect is a lasting relationship. You might not hit it off with everybody the same, but I do believe that, I mean, the majority of my calls, I would say actually all of them, I have at least followed up with them in some sort of meeting. Sometimes it's like right away. I mean, my Hive chat, I guess it was 2 weeks ago. Uh, the conversation was amazing. I mean, we were talking about things that we both enjoyed, and we talked for another hour after that 30-minute call.
Neat.
We hopped off of, the Hive and then went into, I think, a Zoom call or Google Chat and just, you know, chatted about a continuation of what we were talking about in the Hive. So I think that's typically what you can expect is that sort of energy. Um, it's just a feeling of like again, to use the word meaningful, I think meaningful connection.
Yeah. No, that's good.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's not without its challenges, having 22 countries represented. But I think what's been really cool for me, has also been getting an opportunity to hear about so many different missions, but also talk to a lot of people who are on the ground program people in, other countries has been really, really exciting. Like one week I was on a call and I will say that the video was shaky because we're doing a video chat with somebody in Uganda and she was in the field
Right.
teaching how to do subsistence mushroom
Wow.
farming, right? So, but you're just doing that and, like chatted one week with someone who's on a golf course in Ghana, like teaching kids golf. So I think it's just
Wow.
such a wild ride and as much fun and wonderful connections as I'm getting out of the North American side. I think sometimes the influence from other countries of what nonprofit work can often look like somewhere else is
Yeah.
also really exciting because we have some people who are very frontline, like that's the work they're doing is very, very frontline. And then we also have people who are in like advanced data analytics
Oh,
in a major scale, like US nonprofit. So their experiences are going to be very different. But I think, that core nonprofit language that they both speak is such a great common ground to like land on together.
Yeah. And one thing too that we don't Tasha and I have had this conversation multiple times, but we're not leading with is that this isn't just for nonprofits, nonprofiteers, nonprofit professionals. This is also for, consultants and the people who are nonprofit adjacent. I don't know, I know we don't edit this, but that little blurb should likely have been at the beginning.
Yeah.
yeah. No,
Well,
I think that's, I mean, certainly that's my role and Angel Oak's role is we are nonprofit adjacent and, certainly, um, have deep roots in that world and love nonprofits. And, for me, it's just wanting to learn more and to, be more, engaged with those and what is going on in this world right now. I mean, I've had, from AI discussions of how, what does that look like? And what's the AI version of Tasha going to be when when you can't do it? You can't make those connections anymore because you have so many, right? So
we're gonna try it as long as I think Dave and I have already talked about this, that we may try to streamline it more.
yeah,
But I think, there are places where AI just, it can't fill some of the gaps. And I think in many ways, the nonprofit hive is showing the exact example where, lots of fundraisers super worried about losing their jobs and positions as
yeah,
AI makes some things easier. But human connection, I think, is, if anything, people are wanting it more, not
yeah,
less. You want meaningful connection, not just like, higher level fluff. They're looking for like a deep 30-minute dive into connecting with somebody else. And
Yeah.
it's exciting to, yeah, it's exciting to just be providing that in some sort of fashion and just seeing what happens yeah, it's
have you
been
And
got
I
what
wild.
you, oh, go ahead, Dave.
I was gonna say, and I think I would probably rephrase that too. Instead of replace, I would say like augment,
Yeah,
because we have, I mean, that's a really good point and really good thought there, because we have talked about, generative AI assisting our matchmaking process, as far as suggesting based on interests and um, you know, uh, removing, people that have already connected and things of that nature. But, you know, Tasha, I think, the point is there's always going to be a human in that loop. And I think that, Tasha, at least reviewing those, I mean, I have a pretty decent idea of, who's in the community, what's going on, but Tasha is like finger on the pulse. She is aware of everyone that is in the hive, I think, which is, if we're talking about like, true queen bee,
Right.
There it is. It's like any little movement over here, I think Tasha knows what's going on. So
Well,
it's a little, if you see me creeping your LinkedIn, it's because I'm literally going, do they already know each other? Because I'm trying to make sure you don't know each other. Like that is my goal to go, who's someone that Dave Chatham doesn't know. And I need to put him together with this person because this would be a cool connection. And I
yeah,
think that's the hard part is, yeah, does it take time? Absolutely. Is it worth every minute of it when I get the feedback? Absolutely.
yeah.
So,
So it's I think allowing us to scale that with Tasha in the loop is where I think things like generative AI will come into play. But that's topic for another day probably.
that's right. Well, what surprises have you had over these last 3 months? What was something that you said, I never expected that, or that totally came out of left field? Anything like that you can think of?
I mean, one of my surprises, I guess, was I had a feeling that we would have advocates. Like Dave and I have very close friends who are fantastic in the nonprofit space that have been cheerleading us on since day one when we were just ideating. They were our like super fans who believed that this was real and this was a great idea. But I don't think I expected to have so many advocates appear from Hivers who I didn't know. And I think for me in the last 3 months, looking at who is now someone I would consider an advocate of what we're building, I didn't know any of them. Like I didn't even know of them. I didn't know of their mission. I didn't, they just have come out of like left field and been super fans.
That's neat.
When I have someone recently joined from Nigeria, really interesting guy who is an African coach, but then does all these programs for children all across Nigeria. And when I was like, how did you hear about us? Because now people are joining and I don't know any of them. I'm like, who are these people? It's so interesting. And he goes, oh, well, Raymond from Ghana told me about this. And I'm like, of course he did. Like, I mean, but
Right.
like we have certain organizations and individuals who are just, it's been like heartwarming and just so wonderful, but also I just couldn't have anticipated it. I had no idea it would take off like that.
That's
Or
cool.
that it would just be something that people would feel they had to share about. Like I didn't expect that personally.
That's neat. Dave, how about you?
I think a surprise for me, um, obviously full belief in what we're doing, but I think a surprise for me was we had some early goals that to be quite honest, like we didn't meet, but we've like far surpassed that, like in a much shorter period of time following those initial, goal sets. And I think it was sort of like a smooth ramp into like just a jumping off of whatever, is the highest point. Because I think um you know what we're seeing right now, like Tasha kind of said, is like just the growth like outwards, that's not really coming from her or I. And I think that's the beauty of this, is that it's people are telling other people about it. And um yes, we're doing things like this podcast, but it's like really organic. And I think that's where I think I'm surprised most is just with that, like how early we are. And it's 3 months, and our numbers are just kind of mind-boggling, surprising,
That's
for
great.
where we are right now. Yeah.
Well, in full disclosure, we are actually looking at Angel Oak's looking at becoming a partner with the Hive the nonprofit Hive in terms of being a kind of an in-kind advocate as well. So I want to make sure people know that, but this wasn't part of that. This was established before we had even had that conversation. So we're excited just to support your work and the work that you're doing, and excited about facilitating and encouraging these conversations, not to get too cheesy about it, but it's like
Sure.
pollinating, right? I mean, it's you're pollinating these, these conversations and this spirit of collaboration and connection. And there's something really cool about that, I mean, I think it's kudos to you for for stepping out there and doing that. And I certainly think things like LinkedIn and others are providing some of those kind of platforms, but they're you're a step removed, right? And I think what you do is help bridge the gap between some of those digital platforms and the connection that can be made on a more personal level. So I think that's a great resource. I encourage folks to check it out if they haven't. And I'm excited to hear that some of the folks here in our neck of the woods are taking advantage of it and doing that. And we have what we consider a really great community here in our area of North Carolina and in the state. Spent a lot of time last year talking about the state of nonprofits in North Carolina and just how does that look. And having resources like you all to support that work is really awesome, and creates a lot of hope that our nonprofit sector is going to be around and effective for a long time to come. So,
Well, not cheesy at all, but thank you.
well, I like cheese, so I don't mind a little cheese with my work, or honey for that matter.
I was going to say,
Hey,
I think
we got to stick with the analogies.
you got to
Yes.
stick with the analogies. And I think that's been what's so fun. I was talking to, a friend recently who, knew early on about the Hive and has been a huge supporter. And we were talking about articles and we're starting to release blogs, which has been great. And it's totally Hiver generated. Like people from the Hive have this specialty and they're so great at this. And they're the ones going, yeah, I'd love to write an article. And I just go, that's amazing. Like it's so wonderful. And then I said, oh yeah, we're building out like a Hive mind database. And she's
There we
like,
go.
the whole Hive thing, the bees, it all just keeps
It
on.
works.
It works so well for the nonprofit space. And I think I don't know that we really had half of it in mind when Dave and I decided this was a great name for it, but man alive, it has been the best marketing.
Yeah. Well, and
No, that's cool.
like everyone when they're first interacting with like their idea, right, or a brand, there was probably 30 different names on the piece of paper, and we're like whittling it down, and
Yeah.
then one stuck, and it was the Nonprofit Hive. And I'm probably oversimplifying that process for us, but you know it works. It really works.
So you and Tasha didn't have to do like the rock, paper, scissors or death match or anything to get to the
No,
get
and
to
I think Tasha made the list, and then like as I was looking at it, I was like, oh, that's pretty sweet.
the
That one really, sounds good. And then like the domain was available, like the everything,
all
how
worked
the
out.
stars
Everything lined
align
up.
when you're trying to get something like that, and you have a name, and then it's like, oh darn, like the URL's taken, or whatever. So yeah, it worked out.
Well, that's great. Well, no, all we need now is a t-shirt and a sticker. So, let's work on that. We'll
That's our next step. When Dave and I have free time, we'll start up our Etsy store
yeah,
and the shipping and all of that stuff. But
everybody's got to get their new Stanley Cups all stickered now. So,
Right, right.
it's a great
that's
time. Well, good. Thank you all so much for your time, for your insights, for your innovation, all of those things that you're doing. Tell people how they can learn more about the nonprofit Hive and become a Hiver and get involved.
Yeah. So I mean, we're all over LinkedIn these days in all, I hope, the right ways. But if you'd like to follow us on LinkedIn just to kind of see what the journey is about and where we're headed, get some of our Hiver interviews have been really fun to do because you get to meet some of the people who you may end up in actually in a conversation with. And then we've got a great website going, and this is where you can go and sign up, but it's just the nonprofithive.com. So we'd love to have you involved if people would like to reach out because they still have questions. We're happy to answer questions. And Dave and I are both on LinkedIn and quite active. So we'd happily get in touch and explain a little bit more about where we're headed and what's going on.
Well, thank you. And I really, Tasha, I did this podcast interview just so I could hear you say out and about, right? That was the only reason I wanted to do this. So
you know what? I am so glad I did this for you. I'm glad that this all worked out.
You made my day. Any last words that you guys would like to leave with the nonprofit leaders that we hope are listening to our podcast? Anything you'd like to leave? Words of encouragement, words of challenge, anything?
I think the biggest thing, and Tasha said this earlier, we're listening. So if there are ideas around community, around connection, around collaboration, please, let us know. We have some ideas and some things cooking here for, services for nonprofits, and as well as, like Tasha mentioned, a hive mind, really bolstering that idea within the nonprofit hive, around, centralized topics that are community driven. But, we really want to hear what people need, what nonprofits need, what, those, in terms of personal development, what are the pain points? We're trying to solve those things.
Yeah,
that's great. Tasha,
I was gonna say the only other thing I would really say is if you're kind of on the fence about an idea like this, about joining community, about finding your nonprofit community, I can't say enough how critical finding your people, finding people who speak your language is, because nonprofit is a language and it is not the same as when you're talking to other people who are in for-profit. It just isn't. And so to be able to just jump right into talking about what fundraising looks like, about what nonprofit work looks like, about the future of nonprofit work with someone who also cares about all of those things is pretty special. And so if you're just on the fence and they're like, I'm not sure what this is, please, we have absolutely no ego that if you come and you're like, this isn't for me, I will gladly go, that's okay. And you're like, that's all right. But I think it's worth challenging yourself in 2024 with where nonprofit work and the state of nonprofit is to try to put yourself out there and find connection and community for sure.
That's great. And just for those wondering, how much does it cost to be part of the nonprofit hive?
$0.
Zero. So
the
barrier to entry
technically there's no profile
no
sign up. You sign up, there's no profile, so you don't have to log in every week. $0, and it's going to be free. And we have amazing, sponsors lined up to help keep it free. And I think that's the beauty of all this.
That's great. Well, and you can sign up to get a newsletter as well. I've started receiving mine, if I understand, or an email at least.
We do, yeah. You will have weekly emails inviting you to participate, and eventually, maybe Dave and I will get to the spot where we're like, oh my goodness, what we were thinking, fun little like, oh, there'll be a newsletter with the word buzz in it somewhere, buzz from the hive or something like that. But that's the 2024 goal at this point. So
Well, thank you both for your time, for all the work that you're doing. Thanks everybody for listening to Angel Oak Creative's Nonprofit State of Mind. If you're listening to this, we're on Apple and Spotify and all those. So please share it with a friend if you think it would be helpful, and look forward to our next conversation with another great nonprofit leader. Thank you, Dave and Tasha, for your time. Look forward to continuing to buzz around the hive.
Thanks, Dave.
Thanks, guys. Bye.